morning, everyone. Welcome to Talking Horses. Sarah Albadwi and Andy Serling, of course, brought to you by Saratoga Water. We have the bottles now.
We do.
In there as we prepare for another weekend number 2. And after all of the things happened in Pick Six yesterday, the favorite won the last race, and it was the lowest payout of $30,000. But it was I don't think there was anybody in the sequence that was impossible to have. I just think it was a very, very hard sequence to put together.
A lot of favorites were defeated. I feel as though some of those horses that won weren't necessarily impossible, just as you mentioned, but not necessarily the most obvious ones either. So congrats if you were able to be successful. There were 4 horses, I believe, that would have been a double carryover.
Yeah, they were pretty illogical horses. Though one of them made a little bit of a move, actually.
One of them was on the lead. The 5, I think, finished 5th.
Yeah, the 5. Yeah. It was the 5 who made the move into second top of the stretch and just didn't have enough horse. But, it's one of those things, I think, with Pick Sixes, it's very easy to look at results afterwards, especially if you're not somebody who plays Pick Sixes, and say, oh, why did that pay so much money? Or I could have had it together. I think that sometimes it's worth it, especially with the dollar. Give yourself an imaginary $5,000 bankroll and put some tickets together for yourself, whether it's one ticket or multiple tickets, and see it's not necessarily as easy as you think to get all of those horses on the same ticket. And I think there's often a misnomer that it's a lot easier to hit if you're not really involved in playing them. Pick Sixes are tough. They're more about avoiding potholes than actually finding winners.
Yeah.
And I think, yesterday was probably a good example. I mean, even Zabruder, I don't know who was taking 5-2 on that horse, not saying he wasn't one of the worst that could win.
That was a great call, by the way, by Johnny I.
Johnny I was waiting for that. He was ready for that, no doubt about it. Anyway, head over to NYRA Bets. If you're not a member of NYRA Bets, no better time than the present. Use the promo code MATCH200. We'll match the $200 of your initial deposit. NYRABets.com for more information. We have the middle pick 4, 2, 3, and 6 in our 9-race card. We also have a 20% exacta bonus, which I'm actually going to opt into right now. 20% exactas opt in over at NYRA Bets. That's on Fridays here at NYRA Bets. And we're also on from 1 to 5:30 on FS2. And then 8 to 11, I want to say mostly, what harness track are we covering tonight?
We call it Harris Hoosier Philly, which has a couple of important pace
Harris Hoosier
Philadelphia Park.
Okay.
I know it's confusing.
Hoosiers in Indiana.
Correct. This is Harris Hoosier.
But you said Philadelphia. I'm confused.
It is confusing.
Where is it?
I don't know.
You don't know.
But it's not Harris. It's Harris Hoosier specifically. It's not just Hoosier.
Is it one track or 2?
It's one track.
Okay, Harris Hoosier.
I had the same problem this morning. It's okay.
Okay. I don't even think there's a harness track in Philadelphia anymore. It used to be Liberty Bell.
Well, it's like the Delaware County Fair, which is in Ohio.
But it's Delaware County in Ohio. That I get, but okay. All right, anyway, that's from 8 to 11. Race number 1 today. So I guess with race number 1, one of the initial questions is how you're going to handle the number 2 Brooklyn Diamonds, who came from the clouds. And I know this surprised our friend Frank Miramati and surprised a lot of people. His Deputy Connection looked like he was going to get it done. We'll take a look at that video. This horse came from out of the clouds for Linda Rice. Is this horse going to come back and win the non-winners of 3 condition in successive starts?
It's a fair question to ask, and not necessarily a horse that I love taking at a short price, but honestly I feel as though this field might not be as tough given the condition change as this one was last time, because he had to deal with quite a few class droppers in there. He also didn't get out of the starting gate well this day, and I remember the call. Frank was definitely not expecting this horse to close as much ground as he did this day.
I think most of us weren't.
Right. Well, I mean,
I think he spoke for most of us when this horse came from the clouds, especially a lot of people that needed the second horse to get it done.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not enamored with this horse. You've taken him on top, though.
I have. I wish he had a little bit more early speed, but he did sit a little bit closer in his second start. So if they choose to try to get him more involved early, it's not like he's never shown that he's capable of doing so. And I just thought this was an easier field than what he faced last time, though you do have a horse first off the claim for Rick Dutrow that does make some sense.
I think you make a very interesting point, even though this horse is moving up, considering all the drop downs in that race. I think that's a very, very fair point. It's not, I think a lot of people will look at it in different ways, but I think your point is extremely valid because there are a lot of horses that have been hovering around this division for quite a long time, and one of them is Cumberland Blues. I'm just hoping look, I'm going in Joe Obvious to Rick Dutrow off the claim with this horse to get this horse back to his best races. I thought his best races were good enough, and also thought he's a horse that rates to be more forward than the 2. And really, that's the only thing that worries me about the 2.
Oh yeah, he has no speed.
But meanwhile, I'm taking a horse for second, who I've considered putting it on top, who has no speed as well. I just wonder if Blue Grotto at some point is going to refine some of his form for Rudy Rodriguez, but he may just be a horse that's just way too slow early, regardless of who rides him or who trains him.
Look, he faced a tough horse in Valenzen Day the last time he ran, who made a lot of sense dropping that day, who Rudy actually used to have. But I'm just a little bit concerned as well that some of his better races are not what we're going to see today.
Yeah, I mean, listen, he also got drowned by Union Lights and Cumberland Blues. They're in here. So while the winner might be better, he was easily beaten by 2 horses that he faces today. Race number 2 was changed dramatically when the scratches came out and the number 6 Talkin' Pharaoh came out, because depending on how you looked at the race, I'm sure some thought he was going to be a very likely winner. He was going to be a short price. And so whoever you've taken, and you and I both took horses as alternatives, they're just going to be dramatically shorter prices. And now you've got a horse, Cup, who's going to be probably in the 8 to 5 or less range. And I've got a horse, Jester's Song, who's going to be around 3 to 1. So it kind of takes away the appeal, because we both wanted to try to beat Talkin' Pharaoh. He's out, so it makes it easier. But if we want to try to beat him, you'd rather he's in the race.
Well, of course, because you're not going to get the kind of price that you would if he was playing in here, which is the point you just made. With Cup, I feel as though there could be some speed in this race with On the Come Up from the rail, as well as High Strike, who showed some speed at Finger Lakes. And Cup is a horse that can be forward, but he's also shown that he can stalk the pace before. In his last race at Saratoga, he actually broke through the gate beforehand, and I think it just really wasn't his day to be successful. And he also goes to a new barn here, Carlos David, first off the claim in dirt sprints. He's 8 for 30, past 5 years, 27% with a $1.70 ROI, so certainly capable of getting them to fire fresh. And he's had a bullet work since joining the barn, too.
Yeah, on the other hand, Carlos David, who has a lot of success out of town, and yeah, he's a guy who knows how to get a horse to improve off the claim. He's not having a lot of success in New York. He's a 10% trainer in New York. And I was surprised also to look this stat up. Horses claim from Ron McQuett. 15%, 19 for $1.28 on dirt, mostly dirt horses, Ron, who spends a lot of time in Oklahoma, where they obviously don't have a turf course. He's 15%, 19 for 128 with a $1.39 ROI. So he doesn't seem like a guy that's that easy to claim from, and I was kind of interested in that as well. I look at Carlos David claiming this horse and that whole thing, and obviously has credentials. I think he's going to be forward. I think he's supposed to be sitting behind the one on the come up. Now, maybe you're right. Maybe on High Strike will show that speed again, and I suppose it's entirely possible. I didn't really consider him, but that makes this a reasonable point. He should be forward. We'll see how much speed there is, and obviously I'm hoping there's some speed. Jester's Song spent a reasonable portion of the race last time down the rail. Don't think the rail was the place to be on August 3rd. Did get off in the stretch, but also sort of jumped up and broke about 1.5 to 3 lengths slow out of the gate, so had an excuse and just seemed like a Linda horse that was making a drop into a much more appropriate spot, and I thought would be a better price. But now with the scratch in there, I'm just getting less of a price. I'm still going to bet Jester's Song if I get 7 to 2, but that might be a pipe dream in here. I obviously don't disagree on Cup. I just thought those stats were kind of interesting on claiming from Ron McQuett.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's an interesting point to bring up, because you look at what looks like a more high percentage barn, at least on paper, but when you consider all the things you mentioned as far as how he's doing on this circuit and the trainer that he's coming out of, maybe you take a second look. The only other horse I could really make in here was Rock the Weekend. And he's won. He's first off the claim for Dutrow. He's claimed from Atras. And even though he was third last time out August 10th behind 2 horses in an off-the-turf race, I just feel as though perhaps he's one that's going to be coming from off the pace as well, if there is some speed in here. And he has 2 races to go back to that would make him competitive.
Yeah, I think you think there's going to be a faster pace than there's going to be in this race. I don't believe there'll be a lot of pace. Okay. As it is, maybe I hope you're right, because Jester's Song will take advantage of it. I don't see that happening. I have trouble buying the speed figures this horse ran, to be honest with you. I'm not buying an off-the-turf fig like that at a mile, where the figs are tough to make, where he lost by 10 lengths in an off-the-turf race, and 2 back. I mean, I know, to be fair, Run Smitty Run, who was third in there, he was off a layoff, but he came back and ran a reasonable second in his next start. I'm not sure what to make of him, as I see that now Rick Dutrow has joined the many trainers who are training for this JKX training, this operation. There have been quite a few trainers for that operation, as has been evidenced by others. Race number 3 at 6 furlongs in the turf, Midday Image is not going to play for whatever that's worth in here. And I think the conversation in this race has to begin with the pace. And we'll start with Nothing Better, who I think is way the best horse in this race if he can run his best race. But I guess the question you have to ask yourself is, how confident are you that he's going to be able to deal with today's Flavor, who has a ton of dirt speed as he tries the turf for the first time? If he can deal with that horse, he's going to beat these horses, but I'm not sure that's going to happen.
That was the only if to consider, and it was big enough for me to not end up putting him on top because he is faster on paper than these horses. As you can see here, he's just able to sustain that early speed too. And even the races that he's run since this win, they tried the turf sprint over at Pimlico, they tried the Jaipur, they tried the Wolf Hill where he was out sprinted early and the pace came apart.
A wicked pace that fell apart last time, right?
But I think it also exposed that he doesn't have another move. He doesn't have the ability to show that he can come from off the pace and display a turn of foot and have sort of a tactical ability. He has the one move and it's been more than good enough in the past and it's likely to work here. But if he does get pressed by today's Flavor trying the turf for the first time, if he can translate that speed, that might be enough to open this race up a little bit more.
I don't disagree. In general, turf sprint speed is faster than dirt sprint speed, so I'm hoping he can outrun today's Flavor. I could be wrong. Obviously, it's a very, very reasonable question, and it's really the most important question in here. I've had enough of today's Flavor. I don't think you disagree. I think this is a desperation move going to turf. He doesn't particularly have much turf pedigree. It seems like he's a horse that caught lightning in a bottle, whose form has eluded him at this point. We'll see. If he runs Nothing Better in the ground, there's nothing that Better can do. The question becomes, who are the best closers? I thought it was Bring Me a Check, who's the right horse. He's just in great form. And, unfortunately, because he was second in the Bernard Baruch, he's going to take a lot of money, but he's just been in good form. Why isn't he a logical horse if you think the race is going to come apart?
And he was so game last time, too. He actually did get passed by another horse and then battled back to end up finishing second in there. And I don't think there's any shame in finishing second to Pioneering Spirit, who's come alive so much so for Linda since switching over to the grass. And he's just one that has those sprints to go back to as well. It's not as though Stretching Out was this brand new experiment that didn't work out for him. He is a solid sprinter, too, and can show some sort of turn of foot. He also doesn't need to come from the clouds and be so far off of it that he can't get himself at least close enough early to get himself into the game, regardless of how this pace might shake out.
I don't disagree. So you've got Sosua Summer on top. I've hated him in all his starts.
Oh, no, I picked him second.
Oh, you have the 2 on top. Why did I think you had Sosua Summer on top?
I'm not that crazy, come on.
Oh, okay. I'm confused. Sosua Summer, we'll take a look at his last race, and I think he'll take a lot of money because he keeps winning. This is a completely different ball game for him. Now, having said that, if the race falls apart and Nothing Better gets too much pressure in the front end, I guess he can win. But he's been very, very opportunistic, and the reality of his last race is, did he win, or did he just find a horse, Fauci, that refuses to win?
If this was the only race that he had to go back to where he was able to get the job done, you could so easily dismiss it because Fauci is not a horse that likes to find the winner's circle. However, he's just progressively improved so much lately and did win 2 back over Super Quest, who is a pretty solid horse as well. And I've tried to beat him like you on multiple occasions. I've never been his biggest fan, but he should get some sort of pace to close into here, and he's just in crazy good form right now.
He is, but he's going to find the going a lot tougher here. I think the weird horse in here is the 5 High Front. Just a baffling purchase at the July sale for $350,000. First of all, I wouldn't buy a horse from Jonathan Thomas, who's a tough guy to get a horse from and do well with in general, but also because he ran a decent figure winning at Canterbury against a field that wasn't very good. Now, he may have been the most overbet horse of the entire summer in Saratoga when he was inexplicably 7-5 last time, but is he really that bad? I'm not really sure what to do with him. I'll bet he runs better than he did last time, though.
That's fair. I'm kind of done with him. I don't feel as though he faced tough horses in the past, and I agree that his short price last time was completely unwarranted, but that was an uncharacteristically poor performance from him. So if you want to take another chance with him, I get it.
I think it's a very dicey thing to buy horses from different operations, and I was very surprised to see the money they paid for a turf sprinter from that operation. We'll see if he runs better today, because if he doesn't, he has absolutely no chance, because he was horrendous last time, no doubt about it. Race number 4. We'll start out in race number 4 with the horse we have on top, and that's Rojo Liguera.
You know what it means?
As a matter of fact, I don't.
Red light.
There you go. Well, Hopefully he doesn't hit one today. This is his last dirt race, and he just feels like a super logical horse in a race where he should be stalking towards the front end, and it just doesn't feel like that competitive a race.
No, it doesn't. This is a soft spot to land into, and this is just a horse that has had less chances to disappoint throughout her career than some of the others in here. And not that I totally believe that this is the kind of race that we're going to see today, but this race would be awfully tough to overcome in a spot like this.
No, I agree. We'll see what we get. Joe Sharp did have him. We'll see if Gustavo Rodriguez, who has struggled mightily. I mean, you look at his record, he's winning at 8 for over 100 starts, and his horses aren't running that well. He does seem like a logical horse. I almost flip-flopped it and put Memento Me on top. I just wish that horse had a little more speed. That's what worried me about the one, because I do think the one is taking a significant, I know the one's taking a significant drop down and has run fast enough in the past.
Yeah. Oh, if this horse had any more forward position that she had shown in the past, this is a horse that I would have put on top as well, because just as you mentioned, the class drop. But that lack of early pace really did concern me enough to just pick this one second. But those are the two in here, because who else are you so confident in is at least making some sort of change to be competitive in this spot?
Well, I'm not confident in any of them. I mean, I guess Justin Nyquist is the other one. I'm not a rider who's had a lot of success, but maybe in this field it may not really matter. I agree. It's not a race. I mean, it just feels like the 1 and the 9 and maybe a little 3 are the only ones, unless you can make a case. And I tried to make cases here. I
did
could
too.
not. Race number 5, 6.5 furlongs. To me, there's just an absolute ridiculous stick out in this race, and that's the 2 Bad Larry. I am relatively certain if Bad Larry runs his last race, he's going to win this race. That was a fast pace that completely and totally fell apart going 7 furlongs. The horses that beat him, Disappearance and Screamin' Uncle, were both significant drowns, Robbie Falcone and Chad Brown, respectively. And I just thought he ran super. If he runs that race today, I don't believe there's any way he's going to lose this race.
No, I agree completely. I originally had him on top before I saw the morning line come out, and then ended up having enough of a case to switch my picks around. But he is so much so the horse to beat in here with the early speed, the race that he ran last time. The only problem is that you're going from 11 to 1 to now being the favorite.
Oh, I think if he's 5 to 2, I'll be betting him. I think he should be 6 to 5 in this race, to be honest with you. Okay, what do you like about a horse with no chance on paper?
Doing something different, which is what I like to try to find with these horses that look like they don't have any sort of chance. This is the first time sprinting for a Son of Munnings. Started out going long on the turf, which made some sense on the dam side of the pedigree. Clearly doesn't want to do that or be successful doing so. But this is a horse that probably, at least on the sire side, is bred to dirt sprint, now taking the drop in class. He needs to get out of the gate faster and show a little bit more early on. But on August 6th, this was a horse that did check sharply at the break and did make a little bit of a sustained run over almost getting the Chaprita West for 4th in there. Didn't love the race last time, but I just feel as though at a price is a horse that's doing something new for the first time. Mike Maselli, 6 for 26 routes to sprints on dirt past 5 years.
When were those 6 for 26? Were they before or after the last year, and where his horses at Naira can't get out of their own way?
I didn't go that far in depth, but we can find out.
Yeah. He was a barn that was winning a lot. In the last year, they have not been winning at all. He's a huge price. I don't quite get it.
I did ask Maggie, for what it's worth, and Acacia, what they thought about him physically. Maggie thought he could at least sprint. So.
Okay. I think he'll sprint probably slightly less slow than maybe one in here. But, hey, he's a 50 to 1 shot. I'm not going to knock him. Blue Plate Special is sort of the obvious other horse in here, horse that you don't have in there at all. I'll go back to his race back in April last time. That's the muddy track. But it's the last time he also sprinted. What do you have so much against him? Wasn't he in a tougher spot last time out?
Sure, he was. I feel as though he's been with enough good operations throughout his career so far. And granted, he's only been in for a tag on dirt 2 times. But I feel like I just wish that I had seen a little bit more from him because of the operations he's been in, how well he's been spotted throughout his career. And I know that he didn't break as quickly last time. He made up a little bit of ground in that off-the-turf race, but I just wish that I had seen more from a horse that's going to be a short price.
Okay. I mean, listen, I doubt he can beat the 2. I thought he was logical. I put the 9 Dream Canteen in there, a first-time starter for TT. I just thought could be interesting because there's nobody in here doing any running. And I wanted to show the replay on Woodside Warrior because the lacked room at 3/16 is a really deceptively incorrect chart comment. And there were a number of chart comments in Saratoga where there was editorializing being done. I'm not exactly sure why. It wasn't helpful. It wasn't accurate. Did he lack room? I don't know. Was he just sort of waiting? I mean, this race was coming apart. He got a great ride. He saved ground after braking slowly, and he angled out in the stretch. Okay, technically he lacked room, but overall, didn't he just get a great trip?
And didn't braking slowly really benefit him in this race? Because he's a horse that had been a little bit more hustled to the lead, tried to show early speed in the past, and it hadn't worked out for him. So I think that maybe they sort of accidentally found this newfound running style for him. And whatever they decide to do for today, it could end up helping him to be a little bit further back and make that one run. Because where was this race beforehand?
Yeah, I think it helped that he was in a terrible field last time out, to be honest with you. We'll see what happens with him. I just wanted to show that replay because I think the comment was a little bit deceptive for what he did. He did briefly lack room, but I don't think in a way that really mattered. He wanted to angle out. We'll take a break. We'll be back with late pick 4 in just a moment.
For almost 150 years, the Saratoga name has been synonymous with the finest quality, sustainably sourced spring water available anywhere. Saratoga carries on the rich tradition of its forefathers by crafting each stunning blue glass bottle with the same attention to detail and care that has been its hallmark for generations. Visit SaratogaSpringwater.com today or ask for us by name at your local market or restaurant. Saratoga Spring Water. Make every day exquisite.
Welcome back to Talking Horses. Sarah Bodway and Andy Serling as we get into late pick 4 here, 1 3/16 on the turf. And this is a funny race, and I'm going to be very curious to see how they bet this race. For instance, is She's Mo Bubbly going to be favored in here?
I think they're going to take a
Irad?
look at her last dirt race, which was on the most extreme speed bias that I've seen in a while, and probably go off of that, even though she does have some turf races that would make her a very logical player in here. I think that that's what they'll bet.
Yeah, I think they may go to Irad more than that, but I don't know. You know, I think the betting public is a lot smarter than to be betting her off of her last race on the dirt. And I think that, listen, second to Highland Grace, I know she didn't run particularly well this past weekend, but it's not a bad effort. And she's certainly not impossible, but she sure doesn't seem like a great play in here to either one of us at a short price. And another horse I think they're going to probably bet is the Entry, and they're going to bet Tangential, and we'll look at her. Chad Brown's numbers, second off long layoffs, off maiden wins are not good with a small sample size. His record off maidens and turf routes, it's decent. They're not spectacular. But also, she got a perfect trip against a very soft field last time out. And to be honest with you, I'd be more inclined to bet Virtual Reality, her stablemate, if she was by herself, because her second dam was a really good turf horse. But because of the Entry, you're not going to get any price on these. And I don't have any, I mean, I guess she could improve, but I don't have any confidence that she's that good. Do you?
No, and off of this last race, what is she supposed to do in here that's going to be so beneficial that I want to take her at 3-1? Because I agree with you, she got a perfect trip last time, saving ground. She angled out for clear run. That was a very soft field in comparison to this one.
Very soft. Potentially, I agree. Listen, maybe she improves. This is another one where the pace projector also has it wrong. I mean, the Virtual Reality is not going to be in front. Sister Bridget's going to be in front. She's a runoff type. How that's going to affect this race, I don't really know. There's 2 Shug McGay horses near. You've taken Pentagon.
I have, and this is a horse that I do really wish that she had shown a little bit more on this circuit in the past. But
well, wait a second. If she'd shown anything on this circuit, she's never run here before. She's never run at Naira.
Well, she won. She ran in that off the turf race. Where she was
okay,
heavily favored.
Yeah, that doesn't matter. You're right. Fair point.
Okay. Well, anyway, her last 2 races at Monmouth, I feel as though they're pretty decent efforts. And she comes out of a race where her last turf race, a lot of horses out of there have come back and run well. 6 of them have won. 7 of them have improved since then.
Well, 2 won their next start.
Yes.
Okay.
Since that period of time. Not next out, but since that period of time until now. So I feel as though she's a one that she will be coming from off the pace. Sister Bridget is going to go in here. I feel as though today she might be able to get a good kind of trip in here. And she just seems like an improved horse overall as well to me.
Yeah, I mean, listen, that Monmouth race was legit. I have no argument with it. I thought Ruta ran a little better than she did for what it's worth. Not that that's a big deal. I had a lot of trouble with this race. I didn't really like her. I don't like the fact that she never ran in New York until, as you pointed out, she was entered last time, though it ended up coming off the turf. On the other hand, Shug seems to avoid running horses at Naira like the plague, so maybe that's part of his whole plan. You can look at Biloxi Blues as well in a similar situation. I had trouble with this race. I'm not gonna be surprised by a lot of results in here. I did want to show Biloxi Blues' last race because Close with a Rush is the opposite of what she actually did. What she really did was get a sensationally good ride in here.
Grinding effort, not Close with a Rush.
Yeah,
grinding
I mean, she's
effort.
the gray. This is some rush that she's closing with.
Yeah, it's almost like it's in slow motion.
She's just grinding it out down the stretch, right, with a perfect trip and a great ride.
Yep.
On the other hand, she ran a figure that's competitive with these horses, and she's a horse that could take a step forward, and she's supposed to be able to handle the distance, so I don't think it's impossible that she wins. And the truth of this race is, I don't know how many horses here are impossible. I guess Embrace Me is a little bit tough to make.
You can make a case for almost anyone else.
Yeah, I mean, even Sister Bridget, who has that second. I know it's a weird race, but she does have a second.
You
and
know where
obviously-
she's going to be early.
Yeah, so I don't really think there's anybody in here that can't win. As far as Avenue Neal, I just
Premature
felt
move.
what's that?
Premature move.
Yeah, I just thought, you're also talking about a horse that was coming off a near 11-month layoff for a trainer whose numbers with layoffs on the turf and turf routes and horses coming from Europe are not particularly good. I thought she moved too soon. Siempre Elegante is one of the horses that finished behind your horse in that race at Monmouth, by the way. And I just thought she moved too soon. She moved in the middle. Joelle made this big middle move up the inside, and she moved too soon. I thought she was logical. So I took her. She's not going to be much price in here. As far as Rambique, who you laughed that I picked, but
I didn't laugh. I was just surprised that now you like her.
well, no, she had no chance last time, and she was a terrible bet
was a
last
terrible
time,
pick, I
in the
understand.
sense that it was the other half of the entry that could win last time, and you were going to get burdened with her. So if you liked Rambique last time, you shouldn't be betting unless you also felt. Now listen, I would have picked Quarrel last time if I knew that the horse who should have won the Virginia Oaks and got, I think, colicked or something, was scratching out before the race, I would have taken her because she was the only alternative to expand the map who
Yep.
doesn't want to win, and she was able to get control in the front end and just run off and get it done. But I think that Rambique will benefit from some more room, and I mean, I know she was sucking up when she finished behind Avenue Neal, and even though she lost by a half length, but she's going to be a big price today, and I don't think her races are that much worse than some of these. And when I looked at it, I thought, this is kind of an evenly matched field, and she'll be around 10-1. This is a funny race. I'm actually really interested to see who wins. I don't have
Me
any
too.
strong opinion.
No, this
on
is a
who
fun race to
wins.
go through because you can make a legitimate case.
It'll
for a
probably
lot
end
of
up being
horses.
8-1A, and the exact will pay $21. But it just feels like one where, and it's not like you and I have picked horses that are particularly big prices, but just sort of
It should be an even
defaulting
betting
to
board,
tangential or even Cheesemo bubbly.
It's more interesting than that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully it is. I don't know. It's an interesting race, and I think there's nobody here that sticks out in these races. And the maiden winners, they're just not that good. They just happen to come from big barns with good
Precisely.
riders, so they're going to get attention. Race number 7. We'll take a look at the Freudian Mersal Jolly Miss Jill race, and I thought there was an advantage to being inside this day, and I felt like Mersal being on the far outside, Jolly Miss Jill more towards the inside, though she got off in the stretch, and the winner came up the rail. I thought that Mersal would benefit from that. I don't have any great confidence because she ran so well first time for Rick on opening day. A little against it in here, a little disappointing as well. I still ended up taking her, but I don't have a strong opinion.
I mean, bettors liked her last time. She ended up going off favored in there. She's still a short price on the morning line in here. And I think with the argument that you're making that the rail was the place to be and she wasn't really there, that's a fair point in her favor. I just feel as though Jolly Miss Jill is going to end up getting an easier time of it on the front end in this spot.
She's supposed to be in front. I'm not going to disagree with that. Doesn't hurt getting Kendrick. Kendrick's riding great.
He is. I saw that you tweeted about that the other day.
really is.
He's really making a lot of smart decisions.
He's also riding the turf extraordinarily well, and I think a lot of people sometimes act like Kendrick's some sort of one-dimensional rider, which kind of annoys me. They pigeonhole him as the speed rider, which is just completely untrue. He's not even an overly aggressive rider. He's a rider that takes advantage of circumstance, but he's actually as adept at picking up biases. Both he and Trevor McCarthy, guys who have ridden at tracks that often have biases, much different than New York, are quicker to pick up on biases than most riders are here. And I just think he's riding extremely well, and he's getting some better mounts as a result of that, and he's making the most of it. It's ridiculous that the Rick Dutcher horse that won against Kuramada, I have no idea that horse was 9-2 and Kuramada was 4-5.
Duke of Hazzard.
Yeah, I mean they should have been 2-1 and 5-2, but could not have given that horse a better ride in there. Anyway, I don't disagree. I think Diamond Collector is going to run better in here. We both have her second. I know she was close to the pace, and that pace did hold together last time, but I just thought this was probably a little bit of an easier spot. That race came up fast last time, and I'm going to take her. Freudian comes out of the same race. She didn't run at all.
Yeah, I'm kind of done with her.
Yeah, I'm kind of done with her as well. I was mostly 3 and 6 here. You like the 7. Jolly Miss Jill. Race number 8. The question in this race as we look at the John Hettinger is, does anybody believe that New Guinea is going to run back to that last race? Obviously, you and I do not. If she does, she's going to win. Where the heck did this come from?
Did it come from perhaps getting more of a pace setup? And
No.
no, you don't think it was just that? You think she's improved overall?
I just think she ran a race that's inexplicable. I think there was some give in the ground, and maybe she just really liked the
appreciated it.
course. But I don't think you can say this is. Yes, she got some pace to run at. But
No, she also
so did some
performed
others. And she
significantly
beat them by
well,
a
yes.
pole. And where is this race in her PPs? I mean, it's astronomically better than any race she's ever run. So. Yeah, a little bit of pace didn't hurt, but
No, she
it's
also
like,
ran.
It's like she was a ringer. It's like she was some grade 2 stakes winner in that barn, coming in under, with a little disguise on. I mean, it's just
Yeah, no, it was 10 points higher than her previous turf
right.
race.
I
Yeah.
mean, she's had, and by the way, she had good trips in those races too. It's not like she didn't benefit from. I mean, I think she had a pretty good trip in the 7 for a long race. So I don't know. It's just, I mean, listen. Maybe she's going to be a bigger price than she should be, and she's going to come back and blow the field out of the water, and we're going to say we just overcomplicated it. But I think we both want to see it again and talk about what love looks like.
This is a horse that I've never really been a huge fan of or thought was that good, but going back to the last race that she ran, I feel as though she was finally pressured a little bit on the front end and fought back enough. She actually showed that she wasn't just getting an easy time of it, walking the dog, being sort of the horse that's inheriting the lead by default because nobody wanted to go. I think that finally another horse actually pushed her, and she responded enough. I think that she was against the overall flow of that race, and I feel as though the flow of this race, with her drawing the inside, could be more beneficial to her.
You got no argument from me. I agree with you. I think in a lot of ways her last race legitimized her form in a way that sort of, because listen, the race 2 back, she was not going to win. There was an incident top of the stretch that got her the victory. I say that, I bet her that day, but she was fortunate to win. She was on all likelihood going to finish second. The time before that was a weird 4-horse race on a yielding course.
Where it looked like Runaway Rumor was going right by.
Yeah, it just didn't
Right.
feel like that form was totally legit. But I think her last race said it is legit by the race that she ran under adverse circumstances. She was 4 wide in the first turn, and while she cut over mid to late turn, she did involve in the pace. I have no argument with that at all. I just prefer Spongy because Spongy got a very good trip last time. I'm not going to deny it, but Spongy also was coming off a long layoff in a pretty tough spot and made that move, and she's got back races to back it up, and I feel like second off a layoff, I prefer her. I'm not against what the Loves look like. I think she's the other horse as well. I'm willing to bet against New Guinea, but I like Spongy in here, second off a layoff to get it done. It's thought she was the other horse, and I mean, the only other horse in here is Runaway Rumor, and I don't know. I mean,
Now she goes to Linda.
Linda's Rice, trainer switches on the turf and turf routes, 0 for 9 over the last 5 years. 2 hit the board, 2 of them were short prices. She is 3 for 17 overall, means she's 3 for 8 in sprints with a healthy ROI, but she has not done well with turning around. She's getting it from Rossi to Paz. And
I think Rumor just is who she is, regardless of what barn she goes to. She's been in good barns.
Yeah, well, Larry Goichman does seem to go through trainers quite frequently. And I'm not sure what Titi did wrong with this horse, but anyway, and Horacio de Paz had the same problems that Titi had, basically, with a horse. She's a frustrating horse.
Because she's good,
She
but
is
she's not
really
that good.
and she's probably better than these horses if she could find that once good form, but it just seems like it's pretty much eluded her for the last couple of years. Race number 9 is a fun race to close it out. I thought one of the more interesting races on the card. How that works out, we'll see. Reverend Moon and Irish Gent. My friend Nick Tamaro thinks you want to bet horses that were on the rail on the Mellon, and I'm going to have to revisit this over the weekend when I have more time, on September 1st. And so he likes this horse more than I do, but it is an interesting point, and I think we saw one horse called a Party, that Party horse, that did come off of that, Catch That Party, came off that trip. I just feel like Ridgewood Runner was supposed to, Reverend Moon was supposed to win this race, and he didn't get it done. The winner was a 35-1 shot that should have been 10-1.
Who had a previous trip that he was coming out of that we talked about a little bit that day, but wasn't he Reverend Moon just a part of a pace that ended up coming apart.
Was
in
he a
the later
part of it, or
stages.
was he stalking it? I thought he had a pretty good trip. I
Yeah.
guess he's kind of the horse to beat. I'm not a huge fan, but he can win.
Yeah, I feel like he had more to overcome in that race than the Todd Pletcher horse coming out of the same race. I prefer him over that
Unless
horse.
you think it was a dead rail.
Right, and I know David Aragona has that same idea as well. I don't particularly
I have to look it up. I
know
haven't-
enough to
I
be
haven't
able
looked
to
it up.
definitively say for myself, but if that's the case, then sure. He's fine. I don't know. They're both fine, but they're not horses that I necessarily wanted to gravitate to put on top. So I went to Apollo 10, who has some serious turf pedigree as well. He debuted over a muddy sealed surface on dirt, a race won by Furiousness. Air of Defiance was also pretty impressive in there, finishing second. And the Dam, Stormy Regatta, she's a 4-time turf winner, won the 2015 Risk Averse, going a mile here. Half to Base Storm, $1.3 million earner, recently won at Kentucky Downs. She's a pretty good turf sprinter. And Clement Dirt to Turf with first-time turf 2-year-olds, maidens. He's 34 for 139, 24% with a $3.41 ROI past 5 years. So when he makes this switch, it's usually for a reason.
Yeah, I put her second because, frankly, you had her on top, or him on top, and I don't think we're getting the 8-1 on him. I think a lot of people see he ran against Fierceness. I think a lot of people are going to see this horse has a giant turf pedigree. So I didn't think he'd be that big a price, but I don't disagree with you. He's a major use for me. I just sort of flip-flopped the picks and went to the pedigree on Prospero. The Dam's a half to Midday, who was very good, to No Nay Never. It just feels like Jorge Abreu has live 2-year-old turf sprinters every year, and so I went to this one on the pedigree. I'm going to use 3s and 10s in here as well. I'll throw in the 8 on Nick Say So. Even though I didn't particularly like that horse, I'm going to let Reverend Moon beat me, and I'd rather go in different directions. I also just wondered how good really the race that Reverend Moon was coming out of, and I feel like horses like the 3 and 10 could just be more interesting horses in this race. So I'm going to go to horses with pedigree over the horses that have run and see how that works out. Sarah, thanks so much. I think you'll be back on Sunday, I believe.
I will be.
All right, you need to head over to Naira Bets. If you're not a member of Naira Bets, no better time than the present. Use the promo code MATCH200 and we'll match the $200 of your initial deposit. NairaBets.com. Pick 4s, 2, 3, and 6 on today's 9-race card. We have a 20% exacta bonus. Opt in over at Naira Bets, as I just did. And also, we're on 1 to 5:30 on FS2, and then a little break, 8 to 11, covering some track that I'm not even going to tell Sarah to tell you what it is anymore. You guys figured it out. Anyway, Sarah, see you again Sunday. Johnny I will be up and next in a few minutes with a reprise, the Scratches and Changes. Have a great day.
For almost 150 years, the Saratoga name has been synonymous with the finest quality, sustainably sourced spring water available anywhere. Saratoga carries on the rich tradition of its forefathers by crafting each stunning blue glass bottle with the same attention to detail and care that has been its hallmark for generations. Visit SaratogaSpringwater.com today or ask for us by name at your local market or restaurant. Saratoga Spring Water. Make every day exquisite.